This happened not even a month ago. I'm a senior in high school, and I've lived in Nevada my whole life. There's not a whole lot to do out here, but one thing my friends and I have always been into is urban exploring. We'd look for abandoned buildings, old service tunnels, dead malls, anything that felt forgotten. We'd climb through broken fences, take pictures, sometimes sneak up to the roofs or down into the basements. It wasn't about breaking stuff or doing anything illegal. It was just about the vibe. Now, the one guy in our group who always found the weirdest places was Charles. He was the quiet, mysterious type. He'd show up with locations none of us had ever heard of. Half the time, I didn't even ask how he found them. One day, he sent us a screenshot from some sketchy Instagram account. Low follower count, blurry photos, all kinds of creepy comments under the posts. The caption on this one just said something like, "Dozens of abandoned mine shafts in the Mojave Desert, if you know where to look." According to Charles, he had been messaging the account, and whoever ran it gave him some areas to check out. That was all Charles needed. He got instantly obsessed. So, that Saturday, it was me, Charles, and our other friend James. I had a Wrangler that was perfect for off-road desert driving, so we took that. We didn't have a specific address, just a general region and a pin drop. Somewhere deep in the Mojave. The spot Charles had marked was way off in the desert, like really far from anything. We turned off the main road about 30 minutes earlier, and the dirt path we were on barely looked like a road anymore. We drove for what felt like forever. No signs, no structures, no landmarks, just endless nothing. I kept checking my phone even though I knew we didn't have service. James, sitting in the back, was getting more and more irritated. He started saying the whole thing was a waste of time, that Charles had been scammed by some troll account, but Charles insisted we keep going. He's always been stubborn when it comes to navigation. So, I figured I'd indulge him just a little longer. Eventually, just as we were about to call it quits, James pointed out something off to the right. At first, it looked like just more rock and sand, but as we got closer, we saw it. A half-collapsed wooden structure built into the side of a slope. Part of the entrance looked like it had caved in, but you could still see a dark hole behind the support beams. It wasn't huge, but it was definitely man-made. Definitely a mine shaft. Charles didn't say anything at first. He just pulled out his phone, opened the offline map he'd downloaded earlier, and dropped a pin. Then he looked at James and said, "Told you." James just said he got lucky. But even I had to admit, it was kind of insane. We'd been driving in circles out in the middle of nowhere, and somehow we actually found one. I parked a few yards from the entrance, just off to the side, on a flat patch of dirt. We all climbed out and geared up. Charles even brought masks for us. We walked up to the mine, and it looked even sketchier up close. Charles picked up a rock and tossed it in. We waited. A few seconds later, we heard it clang 3 times, then nothing. It was really deep. Charles looked back at us and said, "If you trip on the way down, you're probably dead." We started the descent. Luckily, the shaft wasn't a straight drop. It sloped downward at a steep angle, but not enough that we had to climb hand over hand. The ground was loose and uneven, and there were old wooden beams lining parts of the wall. Surprisingly, they seemed pretty sturdy. The deeper we went, the colder it got. And quieter. It was really eerie down there. You couldn't even see any light coming through the entrance anymore. Eventually, we reached what felt like the bottom. The shaft leveled out and opened into a wider tunnel that branched off in a few directions. It looked exactly how you'd imagine. old support beams every few yards, rusted rails half buried in dirt, and a thick layer of dust on everything. Scraps of wood and metal were scattered around, maybe parts of old carts or tools. It smelled stale in there, if that makes sense. Honestly, I didn't realize how much of a blessing the masks were until that point. We picked a tunnel and just started walking. None of us really said much. We weren't looking for anything specific, just exploring. There wasn't much cool stuff down there. The place looked like it had already been picked clean of anything worth taking. But then we heard something. It was faint, somewhere deeper in the tunnel. It sounded like something being dragged. At first, I thought I imagined it, but I looked over and saw Charles had stopped too. James motioned for us to turn off our flashlights, so we did. We stood there in total darkness, listening. The sound came again, a scraping sound, like metal or maybe wood being dragged along the ground. It was hard to tell with the echo, but it felt like it was getting closer. We stood there for maybe 30 seconds, maybe a full minute. It was hard to tell. The sound kept coming, slowly getting louder. Then, James accidentally flicked his flashlight on, then off again. I wanted to kill him. The scraping stopped, and everything went silent. Then, out of nowhere, there was this loud metallic clang from somewhere deep in the tunnel. Like whatever was being dragged had just been dropped, and right after that came the most awful, demonic scream I've ever heard. It barely sounded human. We turned and ran, not even caring about how loud we were being. I've never run faster in my life. I could hear footsteps behind me and thought I was going to have a panic attack. I was in the back, struggling to keep up. Then I tripped on something. One of my shoes came off. I couldn't go back for it. I just kept running, ignoring the pain in my foot. Up ahead, Charles and James were already climbing the incline. I practically threw myself up the stairs. Climbing half barefoot was the most painful thing I've ever experienced. No exaggeration. I picked up a new splinter every few seconds. If not for the adrenaline, I don't think I could have made it out. By the time I made it into the open air, my foot was destroyed. James and Charles had to carry me to the car. I couldn't drive, so James jumped in the driver's seat. I barely got the door closed before he floored it. I don't think we were followed, but we weren't sticking around to find out. We drove in silence, all the way to the nearest hospital. The pain was so bad, I thought I was going to pass out. I had to get a tetanus shot. Even after all the wounds were cleaned and the splinters removed, I couldn't walk right for days. A few days later, once I could walk without limping too bad, James told us he'd lost his wallet, probably near the mine when he helped carry me. He hadn't said anything at the time, but now he figured it was worth going back, just to the entrance. No way were we going back inside. So the three of us drove out there again, using the pin Charles had saved. James's wallet wasn't there, but we did find something. My shoe. It was sitting a few feet from the mine's entrance. I cautiously walked over and picked it up. It was torn up, like something had bitten into it. There were teeth marks, chunks missing. We didn't stick around much longer after that. None of us can come up with a rational explanation. You might be quick to say it was some homeless person living down there, but if that were the case, how the hell had they survived for so long? There was no food down there. Nothing. Charles said that Instagram account never replied when he DM'd them about what happened. It's going to be a long time before I do any urban exploring in the desert again.